Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the breakout session on mobile advertising. Where and how do 2D codes fit in? It wasn't long ago that I didn't even know what a 2D code was, and then these people from Mobile Discovery invaded a class in our management, our Masters in Engineering and Management course, and asked if we'd like to have some of our students work on a real live project. So all of a sudden, a whole bunch of this kind of stuff began to be developed by a dozen or so of our students under the tutelage of Leanne Barnes and David Miller and others. It's an interesting technology, and our discussion today is going to tap the expertise of 5 eminent people on what 2D codes are, and where they're going and what the potential is. I'm an old marketing person. I'm supposed to self-introduce myself. I'm an old marketing person, a very old marketing person, and I've been around this marketing communications game a number of times. And I was telling David Miller about an article that I ran into that an old professor of mine wrote in 1964 called The Obstinate Audience. The idea behind that article was that no, people do not turn glassy-eyed when you throw an ad at them in print, in broadcast, or anything like that. They actually process. They do use their minds. Well, where we are today, I think, is along a road that has begun there, and even before that, to a very, very active kind of audience. And that's what excites me about it. Because when the audience becomes active, when people can process and react to the messages that we send to them, it disciplines all of us as communicators to be good, and it gives all of us the opportunity as audiences to make sure that we get the information that we want. Our ground rules today are, we'll have 3 speakers who I will introduce, 5 speakers, I'm sorry, who I will introduce shortly, and they will speak in order, and they will limit their remarks to 5 minutes. Anybody who wants to be the timekeeper can. I will also try to be the timekeeper. Each will be addressing a specific topic on our overall topic for the day, and we'll also have some wrap-up questions that I'm supposed to ask. But if we don't have enough time for me to ask them, I'd rather have you ask them if you have any burning questions. So if you don't have any burning questions, I get to ask mine. If you do have burning questions, then we will defer to you. Introductions, then. And I'm not going to read all of this that I have on all of these people. Their bios are absolutely fantastic, and they bring a whole lot of expertise to us. But I will do a quick introduction of each of them. To my immediate right is Philippe Winthrop. He spent his entire career researching emerging technologies and their impact on the corporate value chain. That's a big mouthful, but it says technology really affects the way we do business. Most recently, he was the research director for wireless and mobility at Aberdeen Group, a fact-based research firm based in Boston. Not only did Philippe launch the wireless and mobility practice at Aberdeen, he also conducted groundbreaking research to quantify the tangible value of key mobile and wireless technologies, including enterprise mobility strategy adoption, fixed mobile convergence, enterprise Wi-Fi adoption, and application deployment on wireless LANs and more. He will have 5 minutes to give you a brief overview of that when we get to the speakers. Laird Garner, to his immediate right, has more than 17 years of experience designing, developing, and launching new products in multiple industries. While leading one of the initiatives to develop a mobile coupon solution for Sprint, Laird also became involved with the Association of Coupon Professionals, becoming a co-chair of its digital coupon task force. Participating with the Innovation Lab at Sprint, he helped to develop Sprint's understanding of the potential for code scanning, eventually assisting other companies in understanding how they might participate in the new ecosystem. If you want more detail on these people, by the way, there is detail in the program. Sharon Warmond comes to us from Inman Product Development, from Inbar. She's a product development Inbar Product Development. Sharon has over 14 years in the marketing and promotion areas. She started her marketing promotion endeavors with NASCAR. Always like NASCAR. I'm going to be in Charlotte this weekend, by the way.
Good.
NASCAR licensed brands, including Johnson & Johnson brands, Band-Aid brand, Pepsi, Marathon Oil, and McDonald's. Sharon has developed products and promotion for Bombardier, Sea-Doo, and Little Tikes commercial. She has also dedicated a large portion of her career to marketing B2B products for manufacturing, consumer packaged goods. Currently, she is managing the development of Connections, a digital promotions settlement platform for CMS and Caroline services. The settlement process and coupons is a huge, huge problem, as you all know. Dan Ketterick is another one of the local people. He was named webmaster at WKYC in February 2000. Prior to joining Gannett, Dan served as online editor for IBS in Cleveland at Newsnet 5. He began his online editorial career at http://www.cleveland.com. Those of you who look for a good place to eat and thoughts to do on the weekend know that website very well. Leanne Barnes, in addition to using a very strong horsewhip to keep my students going, is a successful marketing professional who specializes in multi-channel collaborative promotions, which she will explain in 5 minutes or less, that synergize advertising media to engage and reward consumers' brand experiences. Leanne currently works for Mobile Discovery, as you probably guessed, an innovator in mobile marketing platforms and solutions, and has overseen the execution of the nation's first large-scale 2D barcode beta trial here at Case Western, with which you are surrounded with all of the graphics. As a regular contributor on Fox and NBC television networks, Leanne shares a wealth of knowledge regarding marketing, retail trends, and key business strategies for brand management. That's our panel, and I think you'll agree that they are an impressive list at the very least. We're going to go in order with their presentations. So our first presenter will be Laird Garner, and the question that I have for you to talk about a little bit is what is the current state of the mobile advertising industry as we know it?
What's important to understand is really just how to define mobile advertising, mobile marketing to begin with. And a lot of my personal approach to this is that mobile marketing is not mobile advertising. That could take a long time to describe, but essentially the potential for mobile devices to create a relationship between the owner and whoever the brand is that wants to have that relationship with a consumer goes far beyond being able just to put up some sort of an image that positions them with that person. So from my perspective, marketing is a much deeper interaction. And just stepping down through these, just by the nature of it, we had a conversation even last night with Philippe brought some things up of saying that you can tell a lot about a person by the kind of mobile phone that they have. And that's very true, far beyond even what we have as our own PCs or laptops, whether we're an Apple guy or a PC guy or whatever. The mobile phone very much has the potential to extend who we are from a personality standpoint, whether it's our ringtones, the images that we have on it, how we use it, whether we use text or whether we just use it to make phone calls, whatever. It says a lot about who we are personally. And that means something when it comes to the marketing channel that it is. Now, as part of that channel, it is just, again, by its nature, it's highly targeted and it's highly personal. The potential for that, again, dealing with all kinds of privacy issues and all those kinds of things, it still has the potential for more valuable marketing data than any other medium that's out there. The important part of understanding what that is that the consumer has to have control. They've said that, over and over again, even when it comes to the internet or other types of media. But now that this is an extension of me personally, I had better had control of the messaging and things that I'm receiving. And so that's extremely important. Another facet to what mobile marketing is that important to understand is that there are more technologies, more media types in play through this medium than in any other. The fact that you can use location, the fact that it can be video, the fact that it can be audio, text, images, it's really a convergence of all those different types of media types on a single platform, on a single device. The complexity of that should not be taken for granted. It's very difficult to try and bridge all those different kinds of capabilities, which again leads to, and this obviously from this session where we're going to with 2D code scanning, has some interesting ways of getting around some of that kind of stuff, and that'll come out I think later in the presentation. Because it's a very complex proposition. Where do I find the cool new stuff I want to do on my handset? How do I use it? Where is it to begin with? Where do I even start? It's not as easy as a PC. Certainly not as easy as a TV that you just turn on the button and you're fed directly. So these are issues that have to be overcome when it comes to mobile marketing. So you go to the next one. So it's also important to understand that what is real now. There's a lot of different things, everything from mobile TV to text messaging, all kinds of things being called mobile advertising or mobile marketing. Right now, I think it's a foregone conclusion that SMS shortcode campaigns are now mainstream. There are real brands putting real money into making this an interactive channel for reaching their consumers. Where this will change over time is that the data and mobile internet intensive campaigns are really still being experimented with. But what's going to really change this is just really recently, as we've seen really all the major carriers announcing flat rate data plans and kind of an all-you-can-eat package that's simple, straightforward. You just pay one thing a month. You don't have to worry about download charges, all those different kinds of things. That is going to have a huge impact on mobile marketing, or just mobile as a specific communications medium between companies and their users. So you're going to see, as those rates, as they always will, continue to decline, that's going to be a big shift in usability and how people take advantage of it. Another part of that, for what is real now, is that the more of these different kinds of things that are preloaded on handsets will drive the different kind of use cases. That's a significant, it's a fairly significant barrier right now. Is if I have an all-you-can-eat, data plan of some sort, but I have virtually nothing on my handset to use that for, then that's another layer that I have to do. I have to download stuff. I have to download applications just to use it. So the more that the carriers can do to really identify what's real, what people will want to use, and preload that kind of capabilities onto the handsets, then that'll drive all these different kind of use cases. A lot of the examples that you see around the room, and there are probably hundreds more that you don't see hanging around the room. When those capabilities are preloaded onto handsets and come as part of what you have, again, that's another game-changing type of thing. And that's where the wireless industry is moving, is to embed more of these things in there. Now, where this all fits, again, where we're going, I think, with this session, with 2D code scanning, and I really believe is the richest direct response vehicle that's ever been devised. And what I put up here, everything from from a marketing background, everything from tearing out a reply card that are still used in a ton of the magazines that you see scanned or hanging up around here, to 800 numbers, to web clicks, to short codes. Just as we've kind of seen that progression to mobile, now code scanning, and just even yesterday, as I've been telling some of these folks, an advertising age, if any of you follow Al Reese and some of his stuff that he writes, very much a no-nonsense type of guy. He doesn't get caught up in all the newest, coolest things. But he basically declared yesterday that the mobile internet will be the new mass media. But he said there's three things that he believes that need to be a component to that with the device and with the usability that's on it. One is GPS, location. the second is 2D code scanning, and the third is voice recognition. He believes those three things, as part of handsets and the network capabilities that are behind it, will create the new mass media. And it will be mobile, and it will be different than any of the other ones that are out there. So, that's one. This to me has been, as I spent time inside of Sprint, analyzing all kinds of different media and technologies and things, and trying to help them at a small level figure out what's real, what they should be spending their time on. What really captured me about 2D codes was the answer to this question. What happens if every visual medium that exists now becomes an interactive medium, now becomes direct response, now becomes something that I can capture while I'm on the go, no matter where I am, whether it's a 5-story billboard on the side of a building that happens to be a code, or if it's in a business card, or if it's on TV, or if it's on an internet site. If I can capture information instantly and get to the kind of, whether it's bus schedules or all the different kind of use cases that are coming out, it doesn't have to be advertising. It's just a matter of what happens if I can click on something that is in the physical world and get information, capture it, save it, make sure that I don't forget. What happens when that happens? And I think that's really that's where everything is going with this. It really does potentially change everything. So.
Thank you, Laird. I've heard a number of times, though, about things that are going to change the entire world when they become ubiquitous. And that always raises the question of effort, money, and preparedness. So, Philippe, we've got a little question here for you. How well aligned are the end users to making this happen?
So, it's a great question. In fact, what I was doing, I'm sure like everybody here, the first thing that comes to mind, if you could click on the slide, is when I think about enterprise mobility, the first thing that comes to mind is Rudyard Kipling. Because in fact, when he wrote in 1902, The Tale of the Elephant's Child, he said, I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who. So to answer your question, what I want to do is actually go through that mindset, in fact, of what Rudyard Kipling was thinking about and say, why does enterprise mobility matter? What are the organizations doing? How are they going about these things? And what are the tangible benefits that they've actually been able to capture from successful strategies in terms of how they've gone about leveraging mobility? Next slide, please. So what I did back in November of 2007 in December was a benchmark survey of almost 700 organizations worldwide, as you can see here from this chart, really examining the entire question of enterprise mobility. Why are organizations going about leveraging mobile technologies? How are they looking to drive accretive value in their organizations by leveraging these technology enablers? What are the kinds of business processes that they have to have in place to ensure that the technologies themselves are working in a way that is not only expected, but ultimately enhancing the empowerment, the flexibility, and ultimately, even to use a word I don't like to use in mobility, but the productivity of the workforce. So, can we see? Yeah. So, what I do in my research is, having collected these responses from over 700 organizations, looking at every facet of enterprise mobility, what I then do is I actually tier them into 3 categories: the best-in-class organizations, the industry average, and the laggards, through a 20, 50, 30% distribution, where the top 20% are the best-in-class. And I defined from that research, having asked them, how has mobility impacted the flexibility of your workforce? How has mobility been able to increase the ability to gain knowledge and data from other people within your organization? And last but not least, how has mobility impacted your responsiveness to others? And what you can see here is that, in fact, the best-in-class organizations far outweighed the performance level of all other organizations, because what they were able to do was leverage these mobile technologies, not necessarily in different ways from other organizations, but in terms of the fundamental principles behind what they were doing, in terms of how I like to call it, literally infecting the DNA of their organizations by driving mobility within their organization, as opposed to just saying, here, have a BlackBerry, you're now mobile. In fact, what you're going to find is, as we start going through our next slides, is that, in fact, the best-in-class organizations are doing many things differently. Not necessarily the what they're doing, because if you'll notice here, in fact, that if you compare the best-in-class organizations in my research to all others, you'll see, in fact, that from a strategic level, they're doing the same kinds of things. They're looking to increase the collaboration of their workforce. They're looking to provide global access to information. This is the whole concept of the anytime, anywhere connectivity and access, not only to applications, but more importantly, in fact, the data behind those applications. What they're fundamentally trying to do, and here's an interesting difference, is creating that borderless office. How is it, in fact, that, again, with your mobile email or with a fixed mobile convergence solution, I can make phone calls, I can receive emails, I can access corporate applications that are behind the firewall while I'm actually on the beach having margarita, and nobody can tell the difference. And that's the power, in fact, of that enterprise mobility. So fundamentally, what's really interesting here, though, to me, was in the content that what happened was that best-in-class organizations were less focused on streamlining their business processes versus all other organizations. Why? Because, in fact, they had already done so. They had already taken that first step in understanding what was going on in their business to say, okay, we need to align ourselves in a certain fashion, and then how will a technology enabler such as mobility drive further value within the organization? Next slide, please. So I don't want to spend too much time speaking directly to this slide. It's a bit of an eye bleeder, and I appreciate that. However, what I want to do here is highlight, if you just look at this, at the bars, look at the differences between the best-in-class organizations all the way through to the laggards. This is the fundamental differentiator from an end-user perspective in terms of how they're going about things and why mobility is impacting their workforces more successfully. There is a huge difference in terms of the policies that they have, in terms of the appropriate use of the devices. How are these things being leveraged within the organization? You have policies also in terms and processes to assess new projects. The worst thing to do is, in fact, say, oh, great new technology, let's go invest in it and figure out why we should use it and how we can then leverage it. In fact, it is far better to say, to do a self-assessment, looking at the business processes, looking at the value chain within one's organization, and then say, does this have an appropriate place within that workflow? Is it in fact something that can help mitigate a challenge within a workflow? Or is it in fact, even more importantly, something that can enhance a workflow? What they're also saying is that when you look at the words of a technology project, whether it's in mobile advertising, mobile marketing, mobile messaging for that matter, you have to look and say, in a technology project, there are two words. One is technology. The technology actually has to work, and in fact, I will argue, it needs to be a given that that technology will work. But there's also a project component. This is a business plan that has to be created internally, focused on how are these things going to work. And here's a huge difference right there, is in terms of how the best-in-class organizations not only had processes in place to assess new initiatives, but they also had a mobility guru on staff. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be someone who's internal to the organization, but certainly you need to work with a mobility expert who can understand the opportunities as well as, more importantly, the pitfalls in adopting technologies where, again, the internal organization may say, this is a great opportunity, what great technology. But again, always asking yourself, why does this matter? Why should I do it in the first place? Can we go on? Sure. Thank you. Again, another eye bleeder. I don't want to spend much time on this one. The key here is, again, when you're looking at a strategy overall, it absolutely has to be holistic. And what you see here is that the best-in-class organizations are significantly outpacing all other organizations. And imagine this is an amalgamation of the industry average and the laggards. If I were to have broken out the laggards, the differences would have been even more impactful. The key here is that best-in-class organizations are thinking more about more, and really looking, making sure that they have all the policies in place, whether it's carrier selection, device selection, security, clearly a huge issue overall in terms of mobile marketing, looking, making sure that they have the right systems and policies in place. More importantly, the business rules to ensure that they have a complete vision and grasp on what's going on in mobility. Carrier selection even matters in terms of saying to yourselves, what are the right networks for us to be working on? What sorts of platforms in terms of not only operating system, but devices themselves? So really the net of this slide is, you have to have a complete understanding of what's going on with your mobility initiatives, or otherwise you're not going to be able to actually have the successes. And in fact, let's see why in fact that matters. Why does enterprise mobility matter? Because you can actually see that there are major differences in terms of the impact that successful mobility strategies have within organizations. First of all, you see here that the best-in-class organizations were able to increase the competitiveness of their workforce and of their overall organization over 3 times more than the laggards in my survey. That you see the fact that there's also a direct correlation to successful mobility strategies, both in terms of revenue growth and, more importantly, profitability, where you see here 6-fold difference between the best-in-class organizations and the industry average in terms of the fundamental profitability of that organization through the successful adoption of mobility solutions. So can we go to the next slide? So bottom line, but hopefully I'm in a little bit more than 5 minutes, and I'm sorry about that.
I'm in a generous mood.
You are a giver. The point is that enterprise mobility is absolutely not easy. However, there are great opportunities to drive further flexibility, knowledge sharing, and responsiveness of employees to both internal and external customers through successful mobility strategies. But to do that, what it requires is mobility expertise, having the right kind of staff, not only to implement the solutions, but also to use a solution. So training is absolutely key. And the one final message I would hopefully have you guys walk away with here is that a true business plan has to be created in terms of how, again, is this technology going to be accretive to the organization? How is it going to have a positive impact on the business processes and business workflows to ultimately drive higher revenues and higher profitability for that organization?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Philippe. As you talk about putting together business plans so you can achieve all of those great results, I keep thinking about Charlie Revson, who was supposed to have said, I know half of my advertising is wasted, I just don't know which half. One of the real problems in marketing is to try to get a seat at the boardroom table to fight with the finance guys by proving that the communication that you're doing has some value. I'm particularly excited about Sharon's topic, because one of the places where you can maybe make a direct tie, I'm going to put heavy load on you here, is using 2D codes in consumer promotions that are looking for relatively short-term action.
Right.
What you got for us?
Okay, we'll go ahead and turn the slide. Let's get started. I'm actually going to kind of go through some real-life scenarios and what manufacturer or CPG company may actually do in order to promote their brand, and basically how it all works in the end, etc. Why do companies actually have brands, promotions and things of that nature? Well, build brand awareness is a large one. So when you think about that, there are several different promotions that you can do, sweepstakes being one of them. And right now, you have to drive somebody to a website, to link, to enter in their information, all that stuff, or fill out a form and actually mail it in. With the 2D barcode, you don't have to do that anymore. You can click and you're entered. I mean, that's pretty impressive. You can also encourage a trial, which basically if you got a new product or you're hoping that somebody can switch a product, you can scan the code and basically you can have that fulfillment sent back to that consumer. So that's pretty good too. as you go through the grocery store, I know you've seen basically the company that actually spits out the coupons, so you actually buy a product and then the competitor's product spits out, try me, try me. Well, it can actually have, and Laird and I had talked about this, it can actually have the 2D barcode on there. So you scan it, and the competitor's product goes directly to that consumer's house. I mean, that's some pretty powerful stuff. Then plus two, you always want to increase sales. It's all about the bottom line, so you're going to do that. You can do that with a traditional coupon, and we're working on it right now. There's some companies that are working on it. Once you scan the 2D code, you'll be able to, it'll appear as a regular coupon on your cell phone and go through the checkout stand. So there's some ways to go on that, but I think we'll get there, and I think there are some workarounds right now. So some pretty interesting stuff. The cool one that I actually like is to move inventory, especially if you've got a product out there that actually has expired goods, say toothpaste or Cheerios, probably a better example. You know that how much is out there actually sitting on the store shelf, and you know that it's May, July, I'm going to have a bunch of inventory come back from the retailer. We don't want that. You can actually have a coupon, a program out there to where you have a multiple purchase. Now, right now we do cents off on multiple purchases. You have to buy all three at once. It's kind of crazy having 3 boxes of Cheerios in your cupboard when you're only going to eat, probably a box in 2 months, hopefully. What the 2D barcode can do actually is you can actually span those purchases out through multiple shopping trips. And that's pretty impressive if you think about that from a promotional standpoint. That's pretty cool. So next slide. It's funny because I used to be on the other side to where I used to think about all these promotions and think, we could do this and this and this. And you never think about the back end. And then now I'm looking at the back end and I'm thinking, I really don't like those people. Yeah. There's actually a lot involved. And the more the promotion, the more you do, the more the back end that you have to think of. What's it going to take? What's it involved? The current scenario right now, just for paper, and this is pretty staggering, and I know mobile's just going to blow through it. There are 2,000 manufacturers right now. 300 billion coupons are issued to over 300 million people receiving them. 3 billion are redeemed. And this is just paper. At 245,000 retailers, and this is only in the United States. Now, there's some research that was released last week that they believe mobile will actually add 7 billion by the year 2011. Okay? So you need to think about, right now it's small scale, and you kind of have to think about, okay, what about when it gets larger? What's going to happen? Next slide. This is what it looks like behind the scenes now. This is what we do every day. And if you think about it, every manufacturer has their accounting system. Every retailer has their accounting system. Some are good, some are bad, etc. You have a promotion network on the front, just like mobile discovery. You have to have someone on the back end that actually knows how to look at all that data, know how to process it, and do all the financial settlement. And believe it or not, the manufacturers don't always get along with the retailers. They're going to dispute invoices. And that's pretty much what we do at CMS and MR. You kind of have to think of that. Like I said, once it's small and you can do it large scale, you need to have a plan. And, to go back to Philippe's, message, it takes an awful lot to put these promotions on and to actually think about. The front end's easy. It's cool to think about the front end. The back end gets a little bit more difficult. So, and we just kind of want you guys to keep that in mind. So, the product that we come up with is Connections, and that'll be our digital platform for financial transactions. We do expect it to get larger. Right now, we're doing the PayPal, the Obo Pay, and all that stuff. There's nothing saying that we can't submit payments back to American Express, your credit card, etc. So all that's coming. It's in time, and it's just making sure that all the systems work together, and that's basically what we do. So.
Good, thank you, Sharon. Dan, you look like you're a few years away from retirement. Should you be getting away from the traditional media with all of this mobile stuff going on?
You're absolutely right. A couple years away from retirement, and from my perch at a TV station that's rapidly trying to become much more than a TV station, really trying to, we branded it as an information center. We really see two big ways that 2D codes really help make that transition away from, as my one slide says, from the mainstream media, the MSM, into something far larger. So, I mean, from first off, I think anything that we can do to engage the people that we used to call an audience is a positive. And 2D codes certainly, we'll talk a little bit later about how that can happen. And secondly, as we really move away from focusing on just placing ads that happen to go into stream, that is, I think, Philippe, we said is fed to you, that, we really need to focus on the advertisers. So 2D codes are certainly something where we can bring web metrics, something that our advertisers are now very familiar with and asking for, not only for the web, but also with our video stream. We can now bring that, any media property can bring that to an advertiser now, thanks to 2D codes. So three areas, I think, where traditional media, and by media I mean not only broadcasters, newspapers, but also brands, any sort of product really, can be affected by 2D. First off, it's just one more way to expand what we do traditionally. So for us at Channel 3, very much news and weather information, 2D codes, it's a no-brainer. You can use them to help deliver and reach people who are outside of the home, outside of the office, in a brand new way. For example, Leanne was very kind enough. I believe the nice gumdrop trail of 2D codes on the floor will direct you immediately to a Channel 3 news clip talking about mobile discovery. So it's just a very basic way to reach out and extend what you're already doing to hit people where they're at. And secondly, as someone, again, at a TV station, at a part of Gannett, we're very rapidly building as many different websites as possible. You can see this at any media property that you turn to. They're furiously trying to build niche products. So 2D really helps, I believe, with many of those niche products. For example, Gannett is launching something called Metromix. It's aimed at 21 to 30-year-olds. So hopefully, instead of Cleveland.com, we'll be turning to Metromix soon if you're in that age group to figure out what to do on the weekend or that night. And frankly, these are people we're trying to reach who are out and about. So 2D codes allow us to reach that person and not have to have them in front of a computer, in front of a TV screen, reading the newspaper. One of Gannett properties is the Indy Star, the Indianapolis Star. Their website, m.indystar.com, their mobile platform, is already experimenting with this in a way. They're taking photographers, they're going into bars and restaurants, and they're taking photos of people who are at the bar and restaurant and saying, hey, go to m.indystar, and your photo will be there in a matter of minutes. And they're getting great success with that. But with a 2D code placed at that bar or restaurant, you can just have people scan it and say, hey, yeah, your picture's going to be up here. Or you can access the information that we just collected from you, in a matter of minutes. Here's how you do it. You don't need to remember anything. Click, you're there. What better way to reach a 20-something on-the-go kind of crowd? So finally, one more thing I think that will really be changed by 2D codes, and that's cause marketing. And a station like Channel 3 has spent years investing in something like Komen for the Cure, the Race for the Cure organization. And we're raising awareness of breast cancer, raising awareness of Komen, and we do that through partnerships. Some of that partnership is with, for example, National City Bank. So National City Bank helps us, helps the Komen organization, and we're reaching out to them right now, not merely, but we're reaching out to them right now in really two different channels, through broadcast and through email newsletters. Well, one of the problems that we have is we have every year, the Komen organization has 50,000 people show up for a Race for the Cure. And they're here, they're engaged, they're motivated, they want to learn more, they want to donate, they want to help solve a breast cancer problem. And we have no easy way to give them a way to do that. And by easy, I mean a way that helps us, keep in touch with them. And how great would it be for us, instead of having to key in information, fill out forms when you're on race day, it's cold, it's the fall morning, everyone has a cell phone on them. This certainly will help cause marketers, really get information in an easy way, in a very easy way, especially with large groups of people who are outdoors. So,
good. Thank you, Dan. I think Leanne has an example.
Yes, actually, it was amazing. When I first met Dan, that was the one area that he said, oh, we really need to look at cause marketing. And to Laird's point, he said mobile marketing isn't just mobile advertising. It's not just putting the code on a visual ad. And we saw that here at Case with the Relay for Life. And it was when students created codes to raise money for Relay for Life. And it was their first Relay for Life initiative. And the entire, there was a number of the Greek systems got involved, created codes because they have their initiatives in terms of and goals to raise awareness for the Relay for Life as well as funds. And it just heightened the interaction between the codes, their usage, and the adoption of codes. The students would take photos, they'd create a code, they'd take a photo of the code with their camera, and then they'd show their friends, hey, here are my codes on my camera, scan my code to raise money for my team for Relay for Life. Then they would email it on their Facebook or put it on their Facebook page, or they would put up posters and signs in the various, all around campus, or they'd have little parties, code parties, and it just used a number of different mediums that I think we never really even expected to see. The main one being, I was surprised when they said, oh, well, I'm like, why would you take a picture of the code if you're going to scan the code? I'm like, no, I bookmark my codes. I want to raise money for Relay for Life. So I have a code photo album on my phone that I'm showing to my friends. And when they scan it, they're entered to win the sweepstake prize from QVC, and they're going to, and $1 is going to be donated to Relay for Life. And it's like the light bulb went off in the students' mindset because they were in control, like Laird said. There was a deeper interaction with the codes. And it went far beyond putting up an image on a print ad. It was benefiting the entire community and the Case Western audience.
So we've got a couple of minutes, and I'm supposed to ask the panel members this question, but I don't think that's anywhere near as interesting as asking you this question, or if you have any comments about it, and you can read it. What's the most important thing that needs to happen before you're going to get into codes?
I'm quite intrigued and a big fan of this technology. And many of the items that many of you have talked about were very much part of our marketing and business plan and partnership processes. What makes this time different? Is it because so much of it will be leveraged on an existing infrastructure in the sense that off of handheld devices as opposed to a proprietary device? Is it that the market has matured? One of the biggest barriers that we experienced was the fact that, above and beyond the fact that the digerati dissed us in terms of the technology that we brought to market, were these huge issues about privacy that are every marketer's dream. In other words, I can track your movements on the web, or I know who's hitting my advertisement, which is very much part of our plan, and the privacy issues embedded in that. I'm intrigued. I wish you well. I'm curious as why. And we, by the way, spent $300 million, we think, trying to do this with other people's money that came from Coca-Cola, J. Walter Thompson, Belo, Crosspen, and others. I wish you all well. I'm curious about how your perspective is that this time will be the better time.
Anybody want to take that one on?
I'll jump into that. I think it's some of what you just said from an installed base, or, there's a lot of issues that are different and continue to be different. I don't think, this isn't, the reason for this trial is it's a trial still at this stage of the game. But there's an installed base of camera phones that's huge. And again, I think from a data plan perspective, the fact that you're sending data, that's another piece that has to get there where free really is free, from a consumer standpoint. And I think the carriers working through the CTIA are working on getting an ecosystem set up so that there is accountability in the system. I think that's one of the things that they understand, that this can't really just be kind of the Wild West sort of a thing from a security standpoint and all those different kinds of things. And when you really get down to it as well, this really isn't new technology. If you want to start talking about things like near field communication, NFC sorts of things, okay, that's new. That's still something that you have to do. But there have been, this has been going on in Europe, this has been going on in Asia. So you've been able to see some successes and see some failures. And I think, the way that I've seen this progress so far is that the wireless carriers and the CTIA are taking a pretty reasonable approach to this in saying, what are the pieces that we have to have in place? What are the standards that need to be there? And if we can set up that base sandbox, of things that are in place, then it can suddenly open up to a lot of startup companies, a lot of innovation, because we know what the standard is. And that, if all the carriers commit to it, which is what they're working on, okay, that's not going to change. You're not going to knock the feet out from underneath of me. That's going to be there, kind of like SMS. I mean, the same sort of thing. They got together and said, okay, 160 characters, that's the SMS market. And SMS is mainstream now. And so I think it's the same kind of thing that is on the way. It's going to happen. They've seen success. They've seen failures in other countries. So now, we're there. It's not new technology. It's just a matter of getting the pieces in place.
If I might add to that, I'll actually completely agree with what Laird shared, but it's also a question of timing, frankly. We always talk about convergence of various technologies and ecosystems, if you will. I think right now we're seeing a lot of convergence in terms of not only are the carriers looking for new revenue streams, the end user organizations who will be adopting these kinds of technologies are also looking for more for various multi-channel marketing strategies. The fact also that you look at the adoption of mobile phones is in many countries it's actually now super saturated, over 100% penetration. The fact that you now have kids, as was being described in earlier discussions in the plenary session, 4,600 text messages in 1 month, it's there. The technology there, the use cases are more prevalent. I certainly text message, but if I do 46 a month, I would be frankly surprised. The generation, and again, going back to timing, is now ready to adopt these kinds of technologies. So it goes back to the point of the technology there, the carriers are looking for new revenue streams, the end user organizations are looking for new channel marketing strategies. The people who are going to be using or consuming this technology, the consumers themselves, are familiar with how this works. So I think ultimately it's all about timing and the convergence of the technologies and processes and mindset.
Okay, I appreciate the question. It was a nice, easy one to answer. If you wonder whether these things can stop if their time has come, and I'm not sure whether their time has come, just ask Hillary and Barack and John about how well they're able to control their own images and their definition of the image of their compatriots on the campaign trail. Thank you very, very much for joining us and spending part of your day with us. I hope you get some interesting information. Please visit the gallery of what can happen with 2D technologies and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.